Thank you. Good afternoon. I hope my corpus callosum works well language-wise. I do have 5 children, 22, 20, 17, 15, and 8. So I'm at the same time the best parent of the world, and I'm also a man losing hair at some ages. I'm grateful to be here, to be invited by the organizers of this Congress. I want to talk to you about Project Yourlife. Project Yourlife is an international study about what youth think and feel related to relationships, love, and sexuality, and also taking into account leisure time activities, family education, and cultural context. The protocol of this study will appear soon in an article of Frontiers in Public Health. What motivates this research is some paradoxes of public health. This is one example of such a paradox where you can see that this is a European document about health in Europe, and you see that Spain is on the top of the list of boys and girls using condoms when they are 15 in their last sexual relationships. So we could say that the Spanish kids are the condom champions of Europe, and in spite of that, we still have a problem of increase of sexually transmitted infections. So there is a paradox, there's something going on. The general objective of Project Yourlife is to increase our understanding of the determinants of sexual health of adolescents. And we have specific objectives. We want to know more about knowledge, attitudes, and practices related to sexual health of adolescents, mainly concentrated on sexually transmitted infections and diseases, unplanned pregnancies. We want to understand the reasons for having or not having sexual relationships and associated circumstances, and we will study worldwide factors associated to sexual risk behaviors, because we will have data from schools from different social demographic settings. This study will have different types of deliverables and outcomes, but this is an example. This was a briefing paper we wrote on the politics of comprehensive sexuality education, and this was written for people who are working in international agencies trying to counterbalance some policies of the sex education establishment, such as Planned Parenthood and CIECUS, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. I'm going to give you some examples of recent results. One of the problems we have in public health is the concept of risk compensation. Risk compensation is when you want to prevent something using technology without taking into account human behavior, you can end up having more cases of outcome even if you're trying to prevent it. Let's suppose the country wants to promote condom use to diminish the incidence of infectious diseases. If this promotion is not well done, if it's done using the safe sex message, in other words, telling kids that it's okay whatever they do as long as they do it with condoms, then risk compensation can come. Kids that are not having sex might start having sex. Kids that are having a few sexual partners might end up having more sexual partners because they feel safer. And at the end, you could end up paradoxically increasing the sexually infectious diseases. And this graph shows you this phenomenon very clearly. This is the reproductive rate of an infection. The blue line represents how the probability of infection increases as the number of sexual contacts increase in people who never use condoms. That's the blue line. If those people always used condoms and used condoms consistently, the blue line would be lower and would become the red line. In other words, risk would be reduced. Risk will never reach the zero line, okay? So what happens is, if this person here that used to have 20 sexual contacts without a condom now feels safe and starts having more sexual contacts, but using condoms, at the end, what happens is he or she ends up having the same risk as before. 70 sexual contacts with a condom equals 20 sexual contacts without a condom. And this is how risk compensation can be explained. So we published our results in British Medical Open. This is a result, I think it's the first time that with data, risk compensation on condom promotion has been kind of demonstrated using a same protocol in different countries, 2 South American countries and the Philippines in Asia. You need to know that this article was accepted after being sent to 21 journals. They did not like what we had to say. But of course, the sample size is 8,900 kids from 3 different developing countries. So at the end, I'm afraid they had to accept the paper, but we had to try 21 times. So here in this slide, this is a sensitivity analysis where you can see that safe-sex believers have a higher probability of having had sex already compared to non-safe-sex believers. And we reanalyzed this using different criteria, and the odds ratios are always above 0, whether you consider sex, age, the country, socioeconomic level, the level of religiosity, or the type of school, being public, private, single-sex, or co-educational. Whatever we tried statistically, safe-sex believers were always more likely to have had sex already. Let me give you some other examples from other studies. Because another issue that's worrisome is how do we convey to young people the extent of sexual initiation? How do we do this? If you go to the fact sheet of Guttmacher Institute, you can read this. On average, young people have sex for the first time at about age 17. Obviously, a 17-year-old kid that has never had sex yet, if he reads this, he will tend to feel weird or belonging to the minority that has not had sex yet at his age. However, if you go to the percent of kids at each age that are sexually active, you see here that the 17-year-old kids in the US, around 40% are sexually active. If we say this to the kids, that 17-year-old kid will suddenly feel like he belongs to the majority that are not yet sexually active. This is another example of a web page that says that the average male loses his virginity at age 16.9, and females are average slightly older at 17.4. It's the same kind of information. We were able to prove and publish in Health Communication that means and percentages are not understood the same way by young people. In this table of this article, we can see that university students multiplied by 5 the likelihood of overestimating sexual initiation when we presented them the results using average as opposed to percentages. 5 times more likely they were to overestimate sexual initiation around them. So we ended up publishing this paper in Archives of Sexual Behavior to make a point to the journalists and tell them, please do not use the mean age of sexual initiation, because young people do not understand what it means. The problem is, how do you explain what mean age of sexual initiation is? What I do with my students is the following, and they understand it perfectly. I tell them the following. I tell them, look, imagine if here we have 1 million young people, and we ask them, how many are you sexually active? And suppose 2 kids out of 1 million raise their hand. I would tell them, please come here. At what age did you start having sex? 14. How about you? 16. 16 plus 14 is 30. 30 divided by 2, 15. The average age of sexual initiation of this million kids is 15. That's the way it's calculated. It doesn't give you an information on how many kids are having sex. If only one kid comes in and he tells me 14, the average of 14 is 14. And that's the result I would give. So in this table, with data from El Salvador, Peru, and Spain, you can see that consistently the average age of sexual initiation is not telling the truth about the extent of sexual initiation. You see here in Spain, the mean age of sexual initiation is 16. But what's the proportion of Spaniards, 16-year-olds that are sexually initiated? It's 22%. Peru, the average is 14. What's the proportion of kids from Peru that are aged 14 that are sexually initiated? It's 9.6. It's a great minority. Why bother with this issue? Well, Geoffrey Rose in 1992 said that it makes little sense to expect individuals to behave differently than their peers, and it is more appropriate to seek a general change in behavioral norms and in the circumstances which facilitate their adoption. And this is the health impact pyramid from CDC. And you see that the lower interventions have a large impact on the population, and the high level have a lower impact on the population. Changing the context is here, and this is where I am when I'm trying to say that kids should know that the majority of other kids their age are not sexually active. We also published in this paper, Journal of Adolescent Health, more data on sexual initiation in developing countries. Main findings are that the reasons for first sex are external pressure, being carried away by sexual arousal, thinking they were in love, wanting to have fun, and feeling like it. Now, those of you who are involved in educating teens understand behind each of these sentences what things we can think about concerning education. For example, being carried away by sexual arousal. They are telling kids, go ahead, do whatever you want. Consume pornography. You can go ahead with petting, you don't need to have sex. And then this happens. It's not my opinion. Kids are saying they feel pressured to have sex. That's the context I was talking about before. Wanting to have fun is interesting, because maybe your daughter is, I was in love, and she has sex with, I wanted to have fun. That's not very romantic. And I think kids need to know this is happening. Then we studied variables associated with subsequent regret, and you can see here partner insistence, uncontrolled situation, such as petting, and after having seen sexual images. These are directly related to educational guidelines given to kids. I've seen a lot of books of biology that tell kids you don't need to have sex. You can go ahead and do petting. But here, the results are telling you that petting brings them to sex. Which, I mean, it's pretty obvious, we know that. But sometimes you need to prove what's obvious, at least to help all those who are working on the ground and in discussions about what the contents of sexual education programs should be. This was another study that we performed in El Salvador, and these are the factors associated to a lower probability of having had sexual relationships during adolescence. And you see here that lower probability associated to being female with a high degree of religiosity, that live with both parents, that perform cultural activities during leisure time, do not consume toxics, parental supervision that has been stated before, feels accepted and loved, receives messages from parents that tell them to wait before having sex, give importance to the parents, to the opinion of the parents, on issues concerning love, friendship, partnership. The kids that believe the consumption of pornography should be avoided, and they are also kids that have friends that also want to wait until marriage before having sex. What were the variables associated with a higher probability of having had sexual relationships? Age, poor quality leisure, inadequate use of information and communication technologies. I'll show you how we measured this later on. Belonging to violent gangs, believe in safe sex, which is what I explained earlier. Friends, this is interesting. Friends are their sources of information on sexuality. Almost all studies show that the first source of information on sexuality is friends, and the second source is internet, and the third source is parents. This is sad. Any country, doesn't matter. Parents are third place. When I talk to parents, I tell them, do you really think you will do it worse than the friends of your kids? I mean, you might do it as bad, but worse. You really have to make an effort to make it worse. So what's the problem? Why don't you talk to them about this? They have friends that think it's okay to have sex for fun. In El Salvador, we measured the number of possessions, smartphone, iPod, whatever. It was a way of measuring socioeconomic status. And those are young people that think that sex is a biological need you need to fulfill. Now, all these analyses are correctly adjusted for confounders. This is how we measured the inadequate use of information and communication technologies. To have internet without a filter at home. Lots of homes have antivirus on the computers, but they don't have a filter. It's like you're more worried about the integrity of your computer than about the integrity of your kids. They have a computer in the room. They do not turn off the cell phone at night. They download erotic images from the cell phone. They watch TV series but no cultural programs, sports, nor news on the TV. They use internet, video games every day during free time, and they spend more than $25 per month in cyber cafes or cell phone. Lastly, I'd like to extend an invitation to all of you to participate in our study. You have all the information on the project website. It's projectyourlife.com. And we propose an online anonymous questionnaire. It's going to be anonymous for kids and for schools. The questions are previously validated from other questionnaires. For the moment, it's available in Spanish. At the end of March, it will be available in English. There will be 3 questionnaires for kids aged 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And we will be able to follow up the kids that are 13 until they reach 18 without knowing who they are. There's a coding system in the survey that allows us to know this kid here that's 18 today was that kid there when he was 13 without knowing who he is, okay? So this would be like a cohort-like study without the expense needed of implementing cohort studies. What do schools have to do to participate? And what I hope is the American College of Pediatricians could lead this study as far as the branch of the study in the USA. The schools would have to read information on the website. They would request participation online, which would be free. They would have to comply with the ethical requirements. All the ethical requirements are explained on the website. They will receive instructions for participation, and then kids would respond to the survey in the school's computer lab. After that, schools will receive their own results, summarized on PowerPoint slides, and they will receive a written report with general recommendations. For example, if you find in a given classroom that the majority have binge drinking during the weekend, the school will be able to use those slides to give a talk to the parents, to the children, to the teachers. It will help them have a picture of what's going on in their class to change things with educational programs. They could also use this to evaluate specific educational programs. You can do a pre-test, implement a program on a given school, and retest the kids to see what changes you find. And of course, we will receive data from different schools from different countries, and researchers will perform international analysis, but the compromise is we will never identify schools. Nobody will ever give results of a given school. The school will receive their results, and that's it. In this website here, it's a bit.ly link, so it's 10QS1WH. There is a section in English that's called Publish With Us. We're open to invite people who have ideas to publish with us. We would give them a data set, they would do the analysis, and we would write papers together. This is open to whoever is interested in studying things, because all the questionnaires are in this webpage. All the PDF of the questionnaires are there. You can just download them, see what questions there are, and you might have an idea for publishing. And once the Yourlife project increases its data set, we will have opportunities for researchers, postdocs, PhD students, and master's degree students to do their thesis using this data. I invite you to Pamplona, but I'm not inviting you for this, because this can be actually riskier than condom use. The reason why I put this slide is because these persons look like they're having fun. They're having fun, but there's a death danger right there. So basically the conclusion is they do not know what they're doing. That's why they're having fun in this situation. So with this research, what we want is have more information, give more information to kids so that they make better choices. Or after the talk, I would say, not for them to make better choices, for the parents to help them make better choices. Thank you.